Ali had always known hardship. Born into a family that could barely afford 2 meals a day, he grew up watching his parents struggle to make ends meet. His father, once a hard-working labourer, had grown weak with age, his body no longer able to endure the grueling work at the construction sites. His mother did what she could, taking on small stitching jobs for wealthier households, but the money was never enough. Every day was a battle for survival, and Ali felt the weight of it pressing down on his young shoulders. Despite his circumstances, Ali dreamed of a better future. He had always been sharp, eager to learn, but education had never been a priority in his family. School had been a luxury they couldn't afford, and so, like many others in his neighbourhood, he had started working at a young age. He did odd jobs, cleaning shops, running errands for merchants, and sometimes even carrying heavy sacks at the market in exchange for a few coins. But no matter how hard he worked, poverty clung to him like an unshakable shadow. Society had little sympathy for boys like him. The rich passed by in their fine clothes and expensive cars, never sparing a glance at the children working under the scorching sun. Even those who weren't wealthy seemed indifferent, as if poverty was an unchangeable fact of life, something that was meant to exist. Ali often wondered if fate had already decided his future, if he was doomed to struggle just as his parents had. His mother, however, refused to accept this fate for him. She wanted something better, even if it meant making difficult choices. One evening, as they sat in their small, dimly lit home, she spoke to him in a voice heavy with urgency. "Ali, we cannot live like this forever. You are young, strong. You have a chance to change everything." Ali frowned, confused by her words. "How, Amma?" "I work all day, but nothing changes." His father, who had been silent, cleared his throat and spoke in a weary tone. "There is a way, son. A woman, wealthy, powerful, has shown interest in marrying a young man like you. If you agree, you will never have to worry about food, money, or shelter again." Ali's heart sank. He had heard whispers about such arrangements before. Older, rich women seeking young husbands, offering wealth in exchange for companionship. The thought of it filled him with dread. He was barely a man, and the idea of marrying someone decades older than him felt unnatural, wrong. "But Baba, how can I—" His mother cut him off gently, placing a hand on his. "Think of your future. Think of us. This could change everything." Ali felt trapped. Could he sacrifice his own happiness for a life free from hunger and struggle? He looked at his parents, saw the desperation in their eyes, and knew they had already made the decision for him. Madame Sophia was a name everyone in the town knew. She was a woman of immense wealth, owning several businesses, properties, and land. Despite her fortune, she lived alone in a grand but eerily quiet mansion at the edge of the city. Some whispered that she had once been beautiful and had many admirers, but time had not been kind to her. Now, in her 60s, she was a shadow of her former self, her beauty replaced by wrinkles, her youth long gone. However, what she lacked in appearance, she compensated for with power. No one dared to cross her, and many sought her favour in hopes of gaining financial stability. Ali had never thought that his path would cross with hers in such an unimaginable way. When his father first mentioned her name, he had brushed it off, thinking it was a joke. But the next evening, his parents sat him down once again, their faces tense with expectation. "She has made an offer," his father said, his voice firm. "She is willing to marry you, Ali." Ali stared at them in disbelief. The words didn't make sense. "Marry me?" he repeated, almost laughing at the absurdity. "Why would she want that?" His mother sighed, her eyes filled with a strange mixture of hope and worry. "She has no family, no children. She wants a companion. And in return, she will give you everything. A home, money, a life free from struggle." Ali felt a wave of nausea rise in his throat. He had imagined many ways his life could change, but this was beyond anything he had ever feared. He wasn't opposed to marriage, but not like this. Not with a woman who could be his grandmother. "This is madness," he muttered, shaking his head. "I can't do this." His father's expression hardened. "Do you think you have a choice?" he asked. "Look around you, Ali. What future do you see for yourself? Will you spend the rest of your life breaking your back for pennies? Will you watch your mother suffer, your siblings go hungry?" Ali clenched his fists. He had always been prepared to struggle, to work hard for a better life, but he had never imagined selling himself for survival. His mother placed a hand on his arm, her voice gentle but insistent. "Sometimes, we have to make sacrifices for the people we love. This is your chance to escape poverty, Ali. Don't throw it away." Ali looked at his parents, saw the desperation in their faces. They weren't asking, they were begging. He could feel the weight of their hopes pressing down on him, suffocating him. He wanted to scream, to run away from the choice they were forcing on him. But deep down, he knew the truth. He had no way out. And so, with a heavy heart, he whispered the words that sealed his fate. "I'll do it." Ali had never felt so torn in his life. The thought of marrying Madame Sophia made his stomach churn. He was a young man with dreams, desires, and a vision of what love and marriage should be. But that vision had been shattered the moment his father told him there was no other option. He lay awake at night, staring at the cracked ceiling of their small home, battling the voices in his head. One voice screamed at him to refuse. Marriage should be about love, not survival. This isn't a life. It's a transaction. The other voice, quieter but more insistent, reminded him of the harsh reality. You have no money, no prospects. Your mother's health is failing. Your father is too weak to work. If you say no, you're dooming them to suffer. The conflict consumed him. He tried to ignore it, pretending that time would somehow solve everything. But as the days passed, the pressure around him intensified. Word of the proposal spread like wildfire through the neighborhood. The reactions were mixed. Some pitied him, whispering about how unfair it was for a boy so young to be tied to a woman so old. Others scoffed, saying he was lucky. A poor boy like him getting such a chance. He should be grateful. Ali hated it. He hated the stares, the pity, the judgment. Everywhere he went, people spoke about him as if he had already lost control of his life. At home, things were even worse. His father's patience wore thin, and his mother's pleading eyes became unbearable. Every meal they ate felt like a reminder that their survival depended on his decision. His younger siblings, too innocent to understand, laughed and played, unaware of the storm brewing in his heart. One evening, as he sat outside their house staring at the dusty street, his mother joined him. She sat silently for a while before speaking. "I know this isn't what you wanted," she said softly. "But life doesn't always give us what we want." Ali remained silent. "You're a good son," she continued, "and I know you'll do the right thing." He turned to her, frustration flaring in his chest. "And what if I don't want to do the right thing?" She smiled sadly, brushing a hand through his hair like she used to when he was a child. "Then we will understand. But Ali, this is our only chance." The weight of her words crushed him. He had fought against it for so long, but in that moment he knew he had already lost. The next day his father went to Madame Sophia's mansion and gave her the answer she had been waiting for. Ali's wedding was announced. The entire town buzzed with curiosity, excitement, and gossip. But for Ali, it felt like the day he had been sentenced to a fate he could never escape. The day arrived faster than Ali had anticipated. The wedding was grand, far grander than anything he had ever imagined for himself. The entire town had turned up, not out of love or support, but out of sheer curiosity. Everyone wanted to witness the poor boy who had sold himself to an old woman for a life of luxury. The venue was decorated with golden drapes, shimmering chandeliers, and the scent of fresh roses filled the air. Musicians played traditional wedding melodies, and servants rushed around, ensuring that every guest was served the finest food. It was a wedding fit for royalty, yet Ali felt like a prisoner walking toward his execution. Dressed in an expensive sherwani, he stood at the altar, his heart pounding. When Madame Sophia arrived, she was draped in a heavy, embroidered red bridal outfit, adorned with diamonds and gold. She smiled at him, her eyes filled with satisfaction. Ali, however, could barely hold himself together. As the priest recited the wedding vows, his hands trembled, his vision blurred with unshed tears. When he finally spoke the words that sealed the marriage, a tear slipped down his cheek. He quickly wiped it away, hoping no one would notice. But they did. Guests whispered amongst themselves. Some laughed quietly, nudging one another. "Look at him crying like a child," one man sneered. "Did he really think he could escape this fate?" Others pitied him. "Poor boy," an elderly woman sighed. "He had no choice." The gossip and laughter swirled around him, but Madame Sophia remained unfazed. She held his hand tightly, as if claiming him in front of everyone. To her, this was a day of celebration. To Ali, it was the day he lost himself. As the wedding festivities continued, he forced himself to go through the motions. He greeted guests, accepted their congratulations, and smiled when required. But inside, he was drowning. The sun set, and the celebrations slowly came to an end. Guests departed, leaving behind the remnants of a lavish wedding. The mansion was quiet now, and Ali felt the weight of what was coming next. The wedding night. His heart pounded as the servants led him to Madame Sophia's bedroom. He hesitated at the door, his body frozen with anxiety. This was it, the moment he had dreaded since the day the proposal was made. Inside, Madame Sophia waited. She was sitting on the large bed, watching him with a knowing smile. "Come in, Ali," she said softly. Ali swallowed hard, stepping inside, his hands clammy. He braced himself for what was to come, but nothing could have prepared him for the shocking truth that awaited him that night. Ali stepped into the dimly lit bedroom, his heart hammering in his chest. The walls were lined with gold-framed paintings, the bed draped in rich silk sheets. The air was thick with the scent of jasmine, a fragrance that only heightened his unease. Madame Sophia sat at the edge of the grand bed, dressed in an elegant silk robe. She watched him with an amused smile, her eyes sharp yet unreadable. She could sense his discomfort, how his hands fidgeted, how he hesitated to even look at her. "You look like you're about to face an execution, Ali," she said, chuckling softly. Ali swallowed, unable to hide his tension. I don't know what you expect from me," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. She tilted her head, studying him. Then, to his utter surprise, she sighed and leaned back, her expression turning serious. "Relax, boy," she said. "I'm not here to force you into anything." Ali blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" She smiled, but there was something almost sad in her eyes. "You think I married you because I desire a young husband?" she asked. "Because I wanted romance or passion?" He didn't answer, but the thought had been haunting him since the day the marriage was arranged. She laughed lightly. "I won't pretend I don't enjoy the gossip the way people whisper about me, wondering why I chose you. But the truth, Ali, is that I never intended to be your wife in the way you feared." Ali felt a cold wave of confusion. "Then, why did you marry me? You—" She stood up, walking toward the large window, looking out at the vast estate below. "I have no family, no heirs," she said. "I have built an empire, worked my entire life to accumulate wealth, and yet I have no one to share it with. Everyone around me wants something, money, influence, power. But I wanted someone different. Someone who understands what it means to struggle, to fight for survival." Ali frowned, his mind racing to make sense of her words. "I don't want a husband, Ali," she continued. "I want a successor, someone I can trust, someone who will not betray me for greed, who will not waste what I have built." I chose you because I saw something in you. A fire, a hunger to survive. Ali stood frozen, trying to process what he had just heard. So, you don't expect me to… His voice trailed off, unable to finish the question. Madame Sophia turned to face him, a knowing smirk on her lips. No, Ali, she said firmly. You will never have to share my bed unless you want to. This marriage is nothing more than a contract. In time, you will understand why I chose you. Ali exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He had expected the worst, but instead he was met with something entirely unexpected. For the first time that night, he felt a flicker of hope. Ali sat down slowly, still reeling from Madame Sophia's words. He had spent weeks dreading this night, imagining the worst possible scenarios. Yet here she was, telling him that everything he had feared was nothing but a misunderstanding. You seem surprised, she said, watching him with amusement. Surprised is an understatement, Ali admitted, rubbing his temples. I thought this marriage meant… She chuckled. I know what you thought, and I let you believe it because I wanted to see if you had the courage to go through with it. That tells me something important about you, Ali. He looked at her, still struggling to grasp the situation. But why me? Why not someone else? Someone older, someone from a wealthier background. Madame Sophia sighed and walked over to a small wooden chest near her bed. She unlocked it and pulled out an old, worn-out photograph. She handed it to Ali. He stared at the image, confused. It was a picture of a young man, perhaps in his early 20s, with sharp features and determined eyes. There was something strangely familiar about him. That was my first love, she said softly. Long ago, when I was young and foolish, I fell in love with a man who was poor, just like you. He wanted to marry me, but my family wouldn't allow it. They said he wasn't worthy, that he had nothing to offer. In the end, I chose wealth over love, and I lost him forever. Ali looked up at her, stunned. And I remind you of him? She nodded. When I first saw you, I saw a reflection of him. The same hunger in your eyes, the same fire, the same determination to escape poverty. That's when I knew. I didn't need a husband, I needed someone who could carry forward my legacy, someone I could trust, someone who wouldn't take my wealth for granted. Ali's mind raced. This marriage was never about love, never about physical desires. It was a test, a transaction, a way for Madame Sophia to secure her empire in the hands of someone she believed in. He felt an overwhelming sense of relief. He wasn't trapped in the nightmare he had imagined. Instead, he had been given an opportunity, a life beyond the struggles he had known. So what happens now? He asked. She smiled. Now we set the terms of our relationship. You will learn everything about my businesses, my properties, my wealth. I will teach you how to navigate this world. In return, all I ask is your loyalty. When the time comes, everything I own will be yours. Ali exhaled slowly, the weight in his chest lifting. He had walked into this marriage expecting misery. Instead, he had been given a future. For the first time since this entire ordeal began, he felt something new. Hope Ali's life transformed overnight. One moment, he was a struggling boy in a cramped, poverty-stricken home. The next, he was living in a grand mansion, surrounded by luxury he had never imagined. Servants catered to his every need, his meals were prepared by expert chefs, and his wardrobe now consisted of finely tailored suits instead of the ragged clothes he once wore. At first, the sudden change overwhelmed him. He wasn't used to sleeping in a bed so soft, eating meals so rich, or having people bow to him as he walked past. But the real challenge wasn't adjusting to wealth. It was learning how to wield it. Madame Sophia wasted no time in molding him into the man she wanted him to be. Every morning she summoned him to her study, where she taught him about business, investments, and the art of negotiation. She walked him through her empire, her real estate ventures, high-end retail stores, and shares in powerful corporations. You must understand, Ali, she told him one evening. Wealth is not just about money. It's about power, influence, and control. If you don't learn how to manage it, it will control you instead. Ali listened, absorbing everything like a sponge. He realized that money alone did not command respect. Knowledge did. He had once been invisible to the world, just another poor boy struggling to survive. But now, when he walked into a room, people noticed. They greeted him with admiration, treated him as an equal, and even feared him. But with respect came another challenge, his identity. Deep down, he was still that poor boy from the streets. No matter how expensive his clothes were or how grand his lifestyle became, he couldn't shake the feeling that he didn't truly belong. His biggest test came when his family, the very people who had pressured him into this marriage, started making demands. His father, who once spoke to him with authority, now approached him with caution. "Ali, my son," he said one day, "you have so much now. Don't forget your own blood." At first, Ali willingly helped. He sent money home, made sure his siblings had better clothes, and even paid for his mother's medical treatments. But soon the demands became excessive. Relatives he barely knew started reaching out, asking for favors, investments, and luxuries of their own. "You owe us," his father reminded him one evening. "If not for us, you wouldn't be where you are today." The words stung. Was it true? Did he owe them his success, or had they merely used him to escape their own hardships? Madame Sophia saw the conflict in his eyes and placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Wealth is a gift, but if you let people manipulate you, it becomes a curse. You must learn when to say no." Ali nodded, realizing that his journey was far from over. He had escaped poverty, but now he had to fight to keep his own identity. As time passed, Ali found himself seeing Madame Sophia in a new light. What had once felt like a forced marriage now seemed like a mentorship, a partnership built on trust. She had given him more than wealth. She had given him knowledge, power, and a purpose. He no longer viewed her as just an old woman who had bought him. Instead, he saw her as someone who had shaped his destiny. Yet, despite his growing respect for her, a part of him still longed for something more. He had accepted the terms of their marriage, but he had never stopped yearning for real love, the kind of love he had always dreamed of before his life took this unexpected turn. Then, she entered his life. A young woman, beautiful and full of life, with eyes that reminded him of his past. Whether she was an old love from his struggling days or someone new who had recognized his power, she quickly became a distraction. She listened to him in ways Madame Sophia never did. She made him laugh, made him feel young again, made him question everything. For the first time since his marriage, he felt torn between his past desires and his present obligations. Madame Sophia noticed the change. She had always been perceptive, and she knew when her carefully built empire was at risk. One evening, she called him to her study, her expression unreadable. "You have a choice to make, Ali," she said. "You can chase your heart, follow your emotions, and throw away everything you've built here. Or," she paused, looking straight into his eyes, "you can prove to me that you truly understand what I have given you." Ali frowned. "What do you mean?" She handed him an envelope. "Inside is a test. If you pass, I will know where your loyalty truly lies." Ali hesitated before opening it. What he read inside shocked him. Madame Sophia wanted him to make a decision, one that would either secure his future or strip him of everything. The woman who had entered his life had secrets that could destroy him. Madame Sophia had uncovered them, and now she was giving him a choice: expose the truth and stay by her side, or turn his back on everything for the illusion of love. Ali's hands trembled as he realized the truth. The young woman had come into his life not by coincidence, but by design. She had been sent to test him, to see if he would betray the very woman who had given him everything. In that moment, clarity struck. Madame Sophia had never been his enemy. She had been his savior. She had seen potential in him when no one else did, and he had nearly thrown it all away. Ali looked up, his decision made. "I understand now," he said, "and I will not fail you." Madame Sophia's health began to decline suddenly. It started with moments of weakness, missed meetings, fatigue, and long hours spent resting instead of managing her empire. At first, Ali thought it was exhaustion, but when she collapsed one evening, he realized it was far worse than she had let on. The doctors confirmed his fears. Madame Sophia was gravely ill, and there was little they could do to reverse it. Lying in her grand bedroom, her once powerful presence now fragile, she called Ali to her side. Her voice was weaker than he had ever heard it, yet her sharp eyes still held the wisdom and authority he had come to respect. "There is something I never told you, Ali," she said, reaching for his hand. Ali sat beside her, his chest heavy with emotions he never expected to feel. "I chose you not just because you reminded me of someone," she continued, her fingers gripping his tightly. "I chose you because you are connected to him." Ali frowned, confusion clouding his thoughts. "Connected to whom?" She exhaled slowly, gathering the strength to speak. "Many years ago, I loved a man. A poor man, much like you. He was the only person I ever truly loved, but I abandoned him for wealth and status. I always regretted it. Later, I learned that he had married someone else, started a family, and that family eventually led to you." Ali's heart stopped. "What?" His voice was barely above a whisper. She smiled faintly. "You are his descendant, Ali. The boy I once loved was your grandfather." The room spun. Ali tried to process her words, but it felt like the ground had disappeared beneath him. The woman he had married, the woman who had changed his life, was somehow tied to his own bloodline. He pulled his hand away, standing up in shock. "You knew this all along?" She nodded. "Yes. And that's why I chose you. I wanted to correct my mistakes, to give back to the family I once abandoned. I wanted to leave my legacy to someone who carried his blood." Ali's emotions clashed violently inside him. Anger, confusion, sadness, and something else. Something deeper. He had spent so long resenting this marriage, feeling like a pawn in her game, and yet, all along, he had been part of something far greater than he understood. Now, standing at this crossroads, he faced his final decision. Would he leave? Now that he knew the truth, he had the power to walk away, to start fresh, to chase the love he thought he wanted. Or would he stay? Would he accept his fate, honor the woman who had shaped him, and carry forward the empire she had built? Ali clenched his fists, taking a deep breath. His decision would change everything. Ali stood in Madame Sophia's grand bedroom, his mind racing with the weight of his decision. She lay weak before him, the woman who had plucked him from poverty, molded him into a man of power, and revealed a truth that shook the foundation of his identity. For the first time, he saw her not as a rich, elderly woman who had controlled his fate, but as a human being, one filled with regrets, longing, and a desperate attempt to right her past mistakes. He could walk away now. He had enough knowledge, connections, and power to build his own path. He could chase love, freedom, and the life he once dreamed of. The young woman who had entered his life still waited for his answer. If he left, he could be with her, away from the shadows of this unusual marriage. But would that truly make him happy? Ali looked around the lavish room filled with history and memories. He thought of the lessons Madame Sophia had taught him, the empire she had entrusted him with, and the sacrifices she had made. This wasn't just about wealth anymore. It was about purpose. Taking a deep breath, he made his choice. Ali reached for Madame Sophia's frail hand and held it gently. "I'm not leaving," he said firmly. "I will stay." A tear slipped down her cheek, a rare show of emotion from a woman who had always been strong. "Are you sure?" she whispered. He nodded. "You gave me everything when I had nothing. You trusted me when no one else did." I won't abandon you now." Madame Sophia smiled faintly, relief washing over her face. Then, "My heart is at peace." In the weeks that followed, Ali devoted himself to taking care of her, ensuring her final days were filled with dignity and warmth. He ran her businesses, protected her legacy, and proved himself worthy of the trust she had placed in him. When she finally passed away, the world mourned the loss of a powerful woman. But Ali mourned something deeper, the end of a relationship that had changed his life in ways he never expected. With her gone, he became the sole heir to her vast empire. He was no longer the poor boy who had been forced into a marriage he didn't want. He was a leader, a man of influence, and, most importantly, someone who had found his own sense of purpose. And the young woman? She had been a test, a fleeting temptation that had nearly swayed him. But in the end, she had not been the love he truly needed. Ali had learned a valuable lesson. Happiness was not just about wealth or romance. It was about understanding one's destiny and embracing it fully. As he stood on the balcony of his grand estate, looking at the empire now under his control, he finally felt at peace. He had chosen loyalty, honor, and purpose. And in doing so, he had found true fulfillment.